All right, I believe we're live. People are still joining in, so I'm gonna admit them, and then we get this rolling. Thank you guys for joining in. As always, I really amazed of everyone who spent his Thursday morning, night, wherever it is in your part of the world, just to talk with us about SAF, Blazor, XPO, and our personal projects, everything we do and like. This is the SAFer community stand-up. We meet the second Thursday of every month to discuss about SAF, what is new in SAF, what is coming. Today we have a really special surprise, especially we will be discussing the roadmap of SAF in 2021. And we, after that, we're gonna dive in deep on the security system that is completely comprehensive and a really nice role-based control for not only SAF, but for .NET applications in general. So with me right here is Dave, DevExpress MVP for Yama-chan, Dennis, SAF PMs, and Hoche, DevExpress MVP. So I will allow them, even if I know that everybody most probably already know who they are, to introduce themselves, and then we'll go from there. Whoever want to start, Hoche?
Yeah, I'm going first. So my name is Jochi Ojeda. I'm from El Salvador. I'm a DevExpress MVP, and basically .NET is my hobby and my work. So if you have any doubts, guys, regarding SAF, XPO, or any .NET application, just send us an email. So Dave, it's your turn.
Yep, Dave from Llama Chant Technology. We're located up here in Canada. Been using XAF since it was released back in 2007, 2008. We do consulting, training, custom development, all that fun stuff. And happy to be here, part of this community. Dennis?
My name is Dennis. I work for DevExpress. I'm a product manager, and I develop this framework and support it.
Perfect. So again, as always, I encourage everyone to join the community. We have our meetup where we do this event second Saturday of every month, but we also have our Facebook group where we can post links, we can share, ask questions. We have Twitter, so we can follow the DevExpress SAF official account where it has all the new announcement and everything that is going on. Our LinkedIn group, or Gitter, we are in every platform, so please join. There are a lot of SAFers here willing to help. There is a big power in community. I believe that you cannot be successful without joining the community and without growing with them. And today we're going to, again, discuss about the SAF security system. SAF security system is really nice, really comprehensive, and work for every .NET Core or .NET Framework apps. This is the tentative agenda where we already did the introductions. And then in the announcement is pretty much we're going to talk about the SAF roadmap that then it will right now discuss. And this is a great time, guys. So you guys give your feedback. Tell us what do you like, what is coming, what do you don't see that you already need. Then Dave will give a quick introduction of the SAF security system. And then we're going to show some demos about actually using the SAF security system in non-SAF app. Then we can discuss about identity provider using Facebook, using Google, identity server. And as always, we encourage everyone to ask as many questions as possible. This is a great place where we have a lot of people passionate about SAF that you can actually pick their brain, give suggestions, give recommendations, and pretty much enjoy the talk. This is what we like, so let's have fun. So with that one, Dennis, I'm gonna pass this to you. This is the SAF roadmap. Not sure, do you want to share your screen or? Yeah, I think that will be.
Yeah.
You.
I will try to
stop
share.
sharing for a second.
Mm-hmm. I think I did.
Yeah. No, wait. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. I want to make a quick overview of our plans for 2021. And before I do this, just want to remind that we have a team blog. You can find it on DevExpress.com blogs. Here we post our development news, some tips and tricks So if you want to stay up to date and learn new things, so you are welcome to check it from time to time. Okay, let's start from our roadmap. As many of you expected, we continue evolution of our Blazor UI. Last October, we have released the first version ready for production in simple scenarios, and we keep improving it further. First news is that we in 21.1 release our Blazor assemblies will use .NET 5. This will help us and will also help you as developers to make use of the latest features of this new framework. Also, some core features and some Blazor specific features like JavaScript and CSS isolation. Also, new libraries like for authentication. Also, of course, performance and debugging enhancements, etc. And hopefully later this year we will move the rest XAF assemblies to .NET 5. Okay, for Blazor, we wanted to support more modules, more features to have a feature parity with WinForms and WebForms. In the first place, we will release complete support for localization. It will come even earlier than in 21.1. In 20.2.6, we'll release support for localizations, so you can test it earlier. And later this year, we hope to make it possible for end users to switch languages at runtime. For example, there will be a button from the Lagon form or in somewhere in the main form, as many websites do today. Also, the next minor version will support clone object module for XPO. And also, as you know, Blazor UI supports entity framework. And so we will additionally support audit trail module for entity framework in our next major release. Of course, we will support more typical modules that many of you loved from WinForms and WebForms. For example, our popular module that allows you to edit rich text documents. If you follow our blog, we have recently released an example that shows how to have this feature right now in the current version. This example uses our JavaScript rich text editor. Also, we hope to do the same for our dashboards module. We are also going to use our JavaScript dashboard control for its viewer and designer. And we hope that this dashboard module will cover the majority of data analytics scenarios for the start. Of course, we want to support schedule module, and we already started research in this regard. We hope to use native Blazor schedule control, and we already migrated this cross-platform library DevExpress.express app.schedule. We migrated it to .NET Standard for now. It's also useful for some advanced scenarios, some customers. Next, we hope to support some basic features like action container view item. This, if you forgot, this feature allows you to have actions in detail form, not only in main menu. And this feature will also be available in the next minor release, maybe in a month or so. We also support more property editors based on the most popular customer requests. First of all, we want to enhance our lookup property editor to add buttons like new, open, or allow users to add any custom buttons. We also hope to support built-in editors for time span, color, hyperlinks, and etc. There also will be a bunch of enhancements to grid list editor. Here we depend a lot on Blazor grid control. So please follow its development plans in ASP.NET team blog. Basically, we want to have support for column chooser, summaries, etc. Some of these features can already be implemented manually with controllers. Some cannot be implemented. We also want to improve pop-up window management, so you as developers had more options to control size, position, style, etc. As for chart, period grid, list editors, we think that we will decide on them at the end of this year because, as I noted earlier, dashboards module will support many scenarios. But if you require these features right away, you can already, as you probably know, you can already add them by implementing a custom list editor, a custom view item property editor. So it's the same standard procedure as for WinForms and web forms. When you have some standard DevExpress or third-party control, be it JavaScript control or native Blazor control, and you can add whatever you need in XAF because it's fully extendable. Last, we want to support state machine module because it's not very popular, but we already have tests for it, so it's not difficult for us to add its support. And as you probably know, workflow module that relies on Microsoft Windows workflow foundation, it will not be supported because this technology was not migrated to .NET Core and .NET 5 by Microsoft. And we recommend that you implement custom solutions. For example, this interesting module from Expand framework that makes use of XAFer library. And we hope to release our support for entity framework in Blazor UI in 21.1. I will quickly describe the REST enhancements very quickly. Of course, we will keep working on improving usability and cross-platform things like performance, model editor, designers. For example, if you remember our roadmap survey, we asked about the most popular scenarios, and we hope to implement some of them in our solution wizard. For example, we want to make it possible to quickly create applications that use security module and that require Microsoft, Google, or any other external authentication providers. We also want to make it easier for users to create WinForms and Blazor .NET 5 applications at the same time, because as you know, currently we have only 2 separate project templates for this. We also want to automate scenarios like when developers want to connect to multiple databases at runtime, and also scenarios when developers want to expose the XAF application data API, some logic to external apps, for example, custom mobile apps or services.
Hey, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the chat is asking if you can increase the size of the browser just a little bit, that the letter is too small for them.
Yeah. Thank you. And the last feature is my favorite one. It's all about usability. It helps developers to create filters easier. As you know, we have criteria operator API that allows you to build criteria from strings. Also, it allows you to build filters from strongly typed API using name-off and some other features, but it's less convenient than using LinkQ. And this new API, we added new method from Lambda. It allows you to create strongly typed or type-safe criteria using LinkQ. For example, here you can see a simple example. Here we have a comparison. We want to compare name with some custom string, and this is basically text. And using this new method, you can create a LinkQ expression, and it doesn't matter how you change your data property name further, you will always have up-to-date filter. So it's impossible to break, unlike text. Here you can see a lot of examples, more complex examples, but I hope you understand the main idea. For XAF developers, it will especially help them create security permissions in code. Let me show you some example. Here you can see an object permission. Let me also increase, sorry. Here you can see add object permission method that allows you to create some security permission, and it accepts a string filter. And here you can now, in 21.1, you can use link view expression. Okay, I think that's it. Maybe.
Nice, nice. I didn't want to interrupt, but I have a lot of things that I want to add. And also, Dennis, please check the chat. There are a few questions for you there. But I will say my favorites, and then Jose, you can expand, or Dave, or anyone from the community. I would love to hear their opinions. Criterio operator from Lambda, that's so nice. That's so neat. That's, again, I love that one. The net 5 that we can do CSS isolation, that's also a really big thing that I have been waiting for. We have a lot of Blazor components, so it would be really nice to have the CSS right beside that component. Action container view item. So we have tried to put the action inside the little view, following the same approach that we use on Windows and web, and now to be able to do it again in Blazor, that's amazing. Dashboard, scheduler, those are modules that a lot of people already want, and even if we could integrate it, that comes out of the box is really nice, because now we can save that dashboard definition in the database. Before, if you want to do that, you have to go yourself to the database, create the table, create the query to save that, and then retrieve the XML. Localization, it has been asked a lot of time. A lot of people is asking. That's a big one that everyone needs. So I don't know you guys, but I'm really excited by the future, by the roadmap. I would love to hear from Jose, Dave, the community. Adam in the chat already said he's really excited for that criteria operator from Lambda. So kudos to the roadmap.
Thank you, Jose.
Okay, so it's my time for the 2 cents. Actually, the one that I like the most here is to be able to create criteria from Lambda, because then you will avoid magic strings. That is something that we tell a lot to our students, like, okay, try to avoid magic strings. Try to use name of, that was something new like 2 versions ago but in .NET in general. So for me, that's my favorite one. And I don't know, Dennis, if you're going to include in the documentation the other side, when you get the Lambda from a criteria operator, because I think it was not documented. It was open in some examples, you can see it, but I don't think it's in the documentation actually.
If my memory is not broken, it's documented. It's a part of XPQuery API.
Oh, great. So I will take a look to that. So Javier, is it time for the demos, or is not time yet?
Not yet. So Dennis, they are asking if the grid lace editor will have a native export to PDF, Excel, to all those formats that we're used to in XAF window and web.
Yeah, eventually we hope to have this function like in WinForms and web forms grids. I can tell you the exact date when it's added to Blazor UI, but it's for sure an important functionality for any business application, and it will eventually be there. And currently, you can already implement this using reports. Our Blazor team has an example that has some code that you can plug in using a view controller and action. So I can send a link to the chat.
Yeah. A few of the things that we are talking about, I put it here in the link for the community post about, for example, changing the pop-up window base. There is a link here, how to show the login form. So there are a lot of here articles about, again, doing those workarounds while we get there with the more official implementation. Uses templates in the grid, column chooser in XAF Laser, and I'm seeing Jean Paul asking if the grid can support context menu right now.
Right now, we don't have context menu in Blazor grid list editor on XAF, but it's technically possible to implement. By the way, we also it depends which context menu do you mean. If you mean menu for column header, it's one thing. If you mean for grid rows, it's a different thing.
Yeah, I think that is meaning for actions, to put some actions on the context menu.
We didn't have this in the Verb version. To be honest, we have not planned this for Blazor yet, but it's technically possible to implement using a custom solution.
Nice.
Today.
Okay, I think that with that, we are ready to start going through the main topic of today, that is XAF security system. So Dave will give a quick introduction about the security system in general, and then we're going to start showing a few demos. And that's the plan. Dave, you there?
Yep, thank you.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. Let me share my screen too. It changes every time with Zoom, which screen it is. There we go. Okay, so we're talking about security today. I'm going to start the conversation off with a basic demo built right into XAF, and the other guys will talk about how to take that and put it into other non-XAF applications as well, which is really kind of cool. So I created a fairly straightforward, very straightforward XAF application using the project wizard. I included the standard authentication, which then brings in the security strategy complex and the authentication standard as part of my solution. And what that ends up doing is giving you the standard username and password prompt. First and foremost, the really cool thing that I've always loved about the security system is that it is heavily customizable. So what comes out of the box is fantastic. If you find that there's a need to refine it even further, the whole API is open, so you can modify with it and work with it as you need, which is really quite amazing. So out of the box, basically I've created a few business objects in here. When you first log in, if you added the security modules during the project wizard, a couple of roles and users are automatically set up. So you'll see here I have, let me get this out of here. So I have 2 users and 2 roles out of the box. Those are created as part of the database updater.cs. Again, if you don't want them, pull them out, but at least gets you started. So these users are from the permission policy user, and the roles are permission policy role classes that are included as part of the base implementation. They implement things like the I-permission policy role. So if you want to do your own custom users and roles, you can go that deep. And we'll talk about that quickly after. But let's have a look at roles. Roles are where the majority of your security is defined. Again, you can extend it further. And there's been a few improvements over the last few years, which are really quite nice. So with any role, you can attach users. When we get into type permissions, we have type permissions, navigation permissions, and denied actions. And these are the navigation permissions and denied actions are the kind of newest additions. So let's have a look at our type permissions. For some reason I don't have access to this. Oh, right. These are currently unavailable because is administrative is checked.
Yeah.
Kills me every time. So when you're an administrator, you have full rights to everything. There's no restrictions put in place at all. when you are a non-administrative user, when I uncheck this, the options become available to add these type permissions, navigation permissions, and denied actions. I'll go back to the other users, or the other role, sorry, so I don't screw that one up. So I have in my application, just to give you an idea, I have clients. Clients have a collection of locations and a location of contacts, and my contacts can work within certain locations. So I can take one out, so on and so forth. So pretty simple setup. When I declare my rules, now I'm working with kind of those types. So let me go into my user permissions, and you can see, other than contact, these 4 permissions are brought in by default as part of that updated SCS. When I add the contact one, now I can specify permissions directly related to a contact. Before we get too deep into that, we should decide whether or not we're going to allow people to access everything by default, or deny them by default, or make them read-only. So this is another option that's implemented fairly recently. There's been a few iterations of the security system, but I think by default it's set to deny all by default. So basically, any user that comes in, they have 0 access. They're not allowed to touch anything. If you change that to read-only, okay, you can read, but you can't write, you can't delete, you can't create new. Or if you allow all, now you're saying they have access to everything, and we're going to start revoking access. Depending on your scenario and how tight, how big and complex and how tight your security needs to be, one of these options will make more sense to the other. I'm going to go ahead and say allow all by default, and I'm going to turn off the features I don't want certain users to have. And so one of those features I put in here was under the company contacts, I have a driver's license number. This could be a social security number. It could be anything. I want to make it so that users cannot see that value. So I'm going to go into my security role. I'm going to add my contacts. I have nothing specified in here. So it's going to default to whatever my role was, which is allow all by default. And then I'm going to go in and either add member permissions or object permissions. So if I want to turn off an individual member, I'm going to do that inside the member permissions. And what's really cool about this is that you get into, it's on the wrong screen, you get into your role, you can set up the criteria to say, yeah, they can read their own driver's license number, but they're not allowed to read other users' driver's license numbers. So I'm going to turn off the read on this for all. They can't read their own or anybody else's. I set the read to deny. The write shouldn't matter because I'll be able to read it anyway. Save and close, save my role. So when I log in here now as a user, we quickly see, whoops, wrong screen. We quickly see that under contacts, their driver's license has been kind of like a password character has been removed. So, Dennis, did this change? This used to say like content unavailable or whatever, protected content. Was this a recent change? Do you know? Not there. Okay. Yeah, fairly recent, I believe. These were changed to different characters. I think you can define those characters in the model file as well. So outside of that, we've locked that down. Let's go to log out. Let's log in as admin. So those are in the type permissions. So we took it down to the individual member. You can go down and invoke many members based on the same rule set. So if I put in some criteria here that says they can only read their own, or it's not their own, then I can say not only this member, but they're not allowed to see their last name either. So you can do multiple in these member permissions, and then set the read and write. So that's really, really, really specific. You can then go up one level. So you know what? It's not based on permissions. It's the type altogether. So let's say work locations. Sorry, 1 second here. Contacts. Here we go. So my criteria is going to be if it's not their own user. current user ID. That's handy. Then I am not allowed to read. So that's on the object level as a whole. Delete that one, that was a mistake. So now when I log in as a user, when I look at contacts, I should only be able to see myself. Contacts. So they can't see last name. Now, of course, that's silly because the contact is not actually a user. So that actually brings me to another piece, which we'll get to shortly. So that's the basics of type permissions, right? You're defining that for this type, you're either allowed to read, allowed to write, create, or delete. You can go down to the object level and say, if it's this type of object, or if the first name starts with whatever, they're not allowed to see it. So you add criteria, and you say, if it matches this criteria, here are the rules for the object as a whole. If you want to get down more specific, you're doing the same thing, but now you can apply which members that applies to. So these type permissions give you, the most robust flexibility in terms of defining those roles. What we tend to see is a lot of people putting in filters automatically into views, into collection lookups, that type of thing, to say, hey, you're not allowed to look at this, and you're really stepping on the toes of the security system. You should try to let the security system do as much as you can, and then just apply your little changes on top of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Navigation permissions. So if you want to turn off certain navigation items, my navigation is extremely simple. But if I don't want these users to be able to look at even my details, or I don't want to let them look at roles, I can turn off the navigation on those. The same thing applies for denied actions. So here will be my list of actions, and I have one called add all locations. So if you're looking at a contact and you see their list of locations, there's a button there to add all locations. Same thing, I can turn that off, and then users won't be able to see that. So that's the basics of setting up roles. You obviously assign your users to roles. There is some complexity about having multiple users in multiple roles. That is not going to be included in this part of the demo, but we may talk about that later on. We should talk a little bit about the underlying types. So when I go and I look at my Win application here, again, we use a security strategy complex with the authentication standard. There are other authentication types. Down over here, we have the authentication Active Directory. This is particularly useful in a Windows scenario where it basically takes the logged in username and applies that as the user. And you have the options to automatically create that user or have to have it predefined. You can also create your own authentication strategies as well. So if you want to do your OAuth or something completely custom, you can create your own, and then you're just dragging it onto here or defining it here. In the security strategy complex, this is where the user and role types are defined. So over here in our properties, we have our role type, which is our permission policy role, and our user type, which is permission policy user. If you need to use custom security users and roles, so maybe you want to add, first name, last name, email to a user, have them log in and have them more information. There's a couple ways to do that. The easiest one is to extend the permission policy user class and the permission policy role class. We typically do that and do our map inheritance as well. If you haven't seen that before, let me add that really quickly here. So I'm going to add an employee. My employee, I'm going to get the stuff out of here. So normally we do base object, we're going to do permission policy user. Okay. So normally this would create a separate table for my employee with the additional fields. To do things in a single table, we're going to do a map inheritance to the parent table. So it's going to store all of my new fields into that permission policy user table. If I can type today. Last name. Perfect. If you do this, if you create and extend the permission policy user and permission policy role, be aware that in your updater, updater.cs, you need to go back and modify these pieces because they are creating, permission policy users, and you need to put in your own type. Okay, let me resolve that quickly. And there, I'm going to start up a new database for this because otherwise we have to go back and change the object types. I don't feel like doing that for a demo. The last thing we need to do is actually go into our Win application. This is going to change once we get into the Blazor side of things, as the designers are not going to be included, at least not immediately. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build this quickly. Build. So make sure the security strategy complex is selected, come down to your user type, and now I should be able to pick my employee from here. There it is. Okay. So I'm logging in as admin. It's going to create my new database for me, set up my default user, my default roles. Very slowly today, apparently. There we go. On the wrong screen again. There we go. So my employees are here. These are security users, just like we had before. But now I have the options for first name and last name. In the back end, they're still all being stored in that permission policy user table. But it gives me more flexibility, more options. The other option is to implement the interfaces for the iPermission policy user, iPermission policy role, and the other relevant interfaces that go along with security, if you want to do that. So that's a little bit more complex. It gives you kind of the ultimate flexibility. You're not relying on the underlying types. So it's a bit more work, but it does give you much more flexibility.
Yeah, by the way, we will have these current options with employee class implemented in Solution Wizard by default this year.
Oh, very nice.
It's most used.
That's great. Yeah, I've seen a couple people do very custom implementations using the interfaces. 99% of the time, I see people do an extension of the permission policy user and permission policy role, and I've never seen anybody really have a problem with that. So I'm glad to hear that's coming. There's some nuances, some complexities in terms of related objects. I won't really get into details on those at this point, but there are, collection, the other one here. There are some collection related and especially particularly aggregated objects that when they have a relationship type in these type permissions, the security system will make some assumptions for you in terms of if you have the rights to read that type, then the collection of that object within the the containing type will automatically link up. So if I have I have clients and contacts in here, if I add rights to clients and I add rights to contacts, it's automatically going to assume that I can read the contacts within that client. If we go back to the designer again, and we click on the security strategy complex again, you can see that association permissions mode up here. So by default, it's set to auto. There is extended, the extended auto, which is a little bit slower. but does have, I think, a little bit more flexibility. And then there's manual, where you basically have to define rules on both sides of the objects to enforce those relationships. So be aware that that is there as well. Certainly recommend reading some documentation on that. There is the basic security. I mean, we can probably link these after. So here's a good article on the security system as a whole. There is another one on permissions for aggregate objects, associated objects, and how that works. So another great piece of documentation. And then there is one for when you're creating the manual association permissions. So those are three that we should, Jose, we can link those at the end and make those available. They really clearly define how the security system works in the background and the little nuanced rules.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Hey, thank you, Dave. That was a great overview, a great introduction, and I wouldn't call it an introduction. It covered almost everything that we need to have an account in our security system. And definitely, Dennis already put the link on the chat, but I will probably add it to the YouTube video then later on, so you always also have access to that one. So I'm gonna share my screen for just a second. And a few things that I would like to add. Dave, the change was in 20.2.1. It changed from protecting content to asterisk, as you were saying, because it's it's a better user experience, I would say, that the protected content behavior before. I also want to point out that Fernando was asking about some type of cloning the permission or to get it up to speed quickly. And one solution that Danny provides is using the clone module to clone those objects. But also you can also use this example that Express has here of how to use the generate the database updated code. So you can just pretty much copy that code into your application on those permissions, your roles get generated based in the role that you define in your UI. So this is a really nice solution. I actually have a video on my channel about this. I really recommend it. I also want to point out that I have seen a lot of software that I have been using SAF for a few years already, and they are using the old security system user security system role, and they haven't still migrated. So this is also a great link that they can use to finally move their whole implementation to the new approach that it has a lot of new advantages, a lot of new features. And one link that I really like is the landing page from the security system. Right here, we have a really nice visualization of how the security system works, about the authorization part, the authentication part, and how this is not only for SAF. And we're going to show now a few demos using SAF security in non-SAF app, but pretty much it's a common API. When you go and check the code that the designer got generated for you, is actually doing the same thing that we will be doing now, but it makes it so easy for you. And Dennis can correct me if I'm wrong, but the security system have more than 10,000 unit tests. So definitely that's not something that you want to implement yourself. Certainly that is a great tool that you can reuse. And especially us that we really like SAF, pretty much every time that I'm going to do any type of application, even if it's not going to be SAF, I put SAF as my backend and I just reuse my authorization, my authentication, my security thing. And also right here, there are demos with security implemented in almost everywhere that you want in .NET, in WinForms, Console, Web Forms, Xamarin, Blazor, MVC, DevExtreme. So again, the demos that we are going to show is nothing, is already available for you. It's right there in GitHub. Just go there, run it, play with it, understanding, and you will see how comprehensive and how granular the security system can be. So I'm going to start with the most simple of the demos, and it will be the console solution. And then I will do the WinForms, and I will switch to Jose so he can do a Xamarin one that is a little more comprehensive. So let's just quickly review this. We have a SAF application, a normal SAF application right here that let's quickly set it as the start project and let's run it. That pretty much is the same concept that Dave was showing, like with admin, user, and right here you can see that all the permissions are being created, navigation, member type, all the good stuff. So let's just run it. And then we'll see that we're running as an admin. We're going to have a class that is called department, and then we're going to have employee. And because we're an admin, and Dave was explaining, if you have that is administrative Boolean, you have access to everything. We can see everything that we are here. But if we log off and we come back with the user, you'll see that the user doesn't have access to the department, so you cannot see it. And it has some criteria because it can see some of the department, only the research and development department, that is the department that they belong. So let's try to see this in a console application. That is the more simple example. If you see here in the designer that Dave was showing, they already have there, and XAF, when you do the wizard by default that you select, I want to add security and want to add the client mode, it creates all this code behind the hood for you. So let's see right here, we have created an instance of the authentication standard. Then we're going to select in the security strategy complex. And right here, we're passing what are the type of users, permission policy user, permission policy role that we're going to use. And we're passing the authentication standard. Right here, we could have another class that is inheriting from permission policy user and actually using that one instead of permission policy user, because the parameter that the security strategy needs is user type, role type, and the authentication base. In this case, it's going to be our authentication standard. And that one. And I want to also point out that the most common approach is the one who Dave showed about inheriting from a permission policy user, but you can also implement all the interfaces that the permission policy user provides, and you will have the same functionality if you want to do some, like a few years back, we were trying to use this in Xamarin, and we couldn't inherit from base object. We needed to be only XPO. So we did that. Instead of inheriting from permission policy user, we implemented all the interface and inherit just for a XPO class that could run on Xamarin. So after that, we pretty much get our connection string. We create a new secure object space provider, and we pass our security strategy and our connection string, create our users, and then in the authentication, we send the logon parameter, and we pass our username that will be user and the password that we have. And pretty much this part is just to create a text file and pass the objects and of the employees and departments. So we see if they have access, if they can read, then we're gonna show it there. But if they don't have permission for that, we're gonna show the asterisk. And let's run it. Let's see what happens. As long as you understand all the steps involved about authentication standard, security strategy, and I'm running the Windows, let's stop for a second, you will be able to reuse this in any .NET application, any .NET core. So it's just more important about understanding how the security system API is working. You see, the file was created, you can go and read it. So right now, pretty much, let's go and check our file. I went to the other window. Let's go to the bin, debug, and let's find the result txt. You see here, we are saying the user was the one who logged on, and we're going to have the list of employees here. And we already have displaying, he cannot read the department unless that is the research development department and development department. So again, all these steps is all is needed. And we're going to be able to see this today in console, in Windows, in web, in Blazor, in Xamarin. And actually, Jose has a really nice surprise in Uno as well. So that's how most rich that security system have. So let's again close this one. And now let's see WinForms. Went to the other monitor as well. So WinForms. Again, we have our program. And here you see we are repeating the same step. Our authentication standard, our security complex, and our connection string, our object space provider, that it will be the secure object space provider. So it gives us an object space, and then we go to the main form and we pass that security and that object space provider. If we go to the main form right here, then we are going to see that right now we are actually, let me see, we're creating our login form here that is going to be able to do that, and we're going to pass our list. And if we go to the login form, then we have the same thing, the security strategy complete, and we're going to create the login space. We're going to pass the username, the password, and do the authentication, we're going to set the logon parameter. So it's exactly the same kind of steps. And again, this is available already in the landing page for the security system. So you'll be able to just go there, download the projects and run it. I actually separated, so I have all the projects with the same, if you see, we have the same SAF solution here included together. So I will also put this in my repository. So you can wanna take a look, you are welcome to go. So right here, just a WinForm application, and we have, again, employees, and same thing. You can only see what they are allowed to see. So we are reusing the same permission that we already set in our SAF application in a non-SAF app. I don't know you guys, but I think that this is amazing. And actually, I don't know if you guys have dealt with the ASP.NET, for example. Right now, the Microsoft Identity new approach, I like the new things that they are doing. But right now, every time that we have to do the identity through the Microsoft platform, it was just not my cup of tea. This one is a beauty, in my opinion. So with that one, I will let Jose then present a Xamarin demo, and then I will come back with a Blazor and with a web forms. So we see that, again, just follow these steps of how the security system in SAF work, and you can go and check inside. Again, if we go and in the module, if we can start checking if maybe. Okay, of course it will. So right here, we're going to have our authentication standard or security study complex. So SAF is doing that for us already. So it's taking care of all that boilerplate code. But if you understand it, you will be able to reuse it anywhere. Okay, Jose, your time to shine.
Yeah, you make me nervous with that, like your time to shine. Demo effect. Okay, so we have this case right now. Let me share my screen. Is this one. So one of our customers gave us a call and said, like, okay, I want to use one of your products, but I want to use it in Xamarin, and I want to use SAF security framework. So I was thinking, well, now we need to make an example for that. So basically what I did is I have that open here. First, I went to the repository from Developer Express. And if you have the time, check this example. I mean, it will include basically everything that we're talking about today. And thanks, Dennis, for making that, because you saved me a lot of time for making my example already. So basically what I did here is like, I downloaded this repository and I mix and match, right? So from this repository, what I needed was in the XPO folder. So I needed the Web API web service and basically the Xamarin solution. So I put that together in a different solution that had only that in place. So this is what we have at the moment. We have the Xamarin Forms application, which are these 3 projects. This is like the equivalent to the agnostic module in SAF, which is the application project in Xamarin. So basically what we did here is we have a normal SAF application. In this case, it's a Windows Forms application. I'm going to run it first time so you can see what I'm doing. And by the way, this example is actually an example for our synchronization framework. So I will show that actually in the middle. So the idea is like this. We created our custom providers because the customer wanted to work offline in Xamarin using the security system from SAF. So the requirement was like a little bit extend, I would say. So let's run this first. And let me show you the part that I changed. In here, I only changed one line. I registered or sync data store provider, and I changed the connection string. And that's it. So basically, this application will create some additional database to save the difference on the data. So let me close all of this. And let's run this for the first time. Okay, so let's log in as admin. This will take some time because it's creating the database for the first time. So let's wait for it. Ah, I changed the password. I forgot this one. Okay, so this data was created by the updater. So this code is basically here. One sec. So basically, they inject the data during the creation of the database. And also they created the first role and the first user and so on and so forth, right? So now what we needed to do for this customer is that we need to move all of this to Xamarin, basically. So, but they wanted to work offline. So that was another characteristic. So first, let's go and check the databases. Let me refresh this. And this list is huge because we have a lot of examples. So basically, we're connecting to this database. So this is a normal database that will be created by XAF or XPO. But then we have our additional database, that is the Delta databases. Those are the difference in how the transactions were created. So here we have a little bit of basically some system tables for us. And basically we have something that is called the deltas. That is everything that was created for each transaction in general. You will not see anything here because these are is binary data, but in general, we are tracking whatever is happening on the SAF application and we're saving it as deltas. So after that, what we needed to do is, well, move everything to Xamarin, right? Or be able to access this in Xamarin. So for that, what we did is we take the Web API project that they have, and we just modified it a little bit. So at the beginning, what we did is we registered our provider again because they wanted to use this functionality offline. So after that, basically, we modified the startup. So everything else here is like normal, I will say like XPO code. And this is how you actually include XPO in a Web API application from .NET Core. So basically, to add our functionality of offline synchronization to be able to use a security system in Xamarin, what we did is we have a few extensions. So it's only 3 lines to implement, 4 lines if you count the registration of the provider. But beside that, it's like really, really simple. So with this project, you will get this controller, the XPO controller. So this is basically how your Xamarin application will communicate back to your SAF application. So in this case, if you're using this controller, it will happen online completely. It will be you will be requesting everything to the server, right? So to do the scenario that the customer wanted, we included the sync controller. So basically, you don't have to do anything here. I just did the overrides to show that you can override some part of the controller. But in general, you just need to add a controller and inherit it from sync controller base. So now that we have that, we can use the security system and basically all data model in the Xamarin application. This I will show it like really quick because I don't want to repeat whatever Javier said, because the implementation of the security system is basically agnostic. The same lines that you will do for console is the same lines that you will do for Xamarin and that you will do for any other platform. So in general here, all the data access is encapsulated in this file, the XPO helper file. And if you have been working with XPO for a long time, as I do, I remember that the first appearance of this class was in how to use XPO in .NET in web forms. So basically, the implementation is a static class that will provide you a unit of work in the end. So the implementation for the security system is basically in the constructor. So first you need to register the entities. Then you need to initialize the security, basically by telling it which type of user you will use, which type of authentication you will use, and which type of role you will use. And after that, you just need to create an object space provider, a secure object space provider. The trick is that if you want to be able to filter your data according to the security system, for example, if you don't have permission in one type, you want to exclude it. So you need to use the secure object space provider in general. So let's run this. And what I want to show you is the functionality that is offline somehow. So for that, I will start an nrock tunnel because I have some small problems like connecting to my local host. Okay, so let's wait a little bit for this. Just one sec. Sorry for that, guys. Just let me run this as an administrator because otherwise I cannot download the file. So one sec. So let me open this one. Okay, so let's try to start nrock right now. So let me check if it's running as admin. I guess it should. Yeah. So nrock. So basically this will make my local host available through the internet, and I'm going to use that to connect from the emulator. So let me copy this address. And basically what I will do is take this and go to the XPO helper here in the core. No, I will not put it there. It's in the login view model. So it's here. So here in their example, they are connecting to the original provider, which is the one that is in this controller, the XPO controller. But in this case, we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to do it through the sync framework. So what we're going to do is come here and replace it. I have added a different init method for this. So let me put this here. And let's run this. So let's do multiple startup. And we want to start the API. And then the Android application. So let's run this. And let's pray to the demo gods that nothing will explode here. So let's wait a little bit for this to build. So, okay, it's almost done. We have the API running. And then we have the emulator. So let's wait a little bit for this to finish loading. And let's start using XPO and the data created by the XAF application in the Xamarin application, but it will be offline actually. Okay, so this is running at the moment, so let me show you. Currently, I have an internet connection in the emulator. So what I will do is I will sync. Right now, it's taking all the deltas and the information that we got from the XAF application. So now synchronization is done. So basically what I will do is I can put this in flight mode. And yeah, flight mode, there you go. And then basically we can use at the moment XPO, like the security system from XAF in Xamarin. So I will log in as an admin. And the password is 1. Okay, so I'm working locally. And for example, let's take a look to this person, Aaron Borman. So his department is sales and marketing. What I will do is I will do a change. I will change it to SEO and save it. So then let's edit this person and let's change the name to XAF and save it. And then Albert Walker, I'm going to delete it basically. So everything right now is working locally because the emulator is in flight mode. So there's no connection to the internet at the moment. Okay, so what I will do is, let me stop this and I will start the XAF application at the same time. So let's come here and start the XAF application. So we will see that every change that I do, I can just get it from the mobile application to the XAF application. And all of that is going through the security system, basically. So let's wait a little bit for this to load. Now it needs to load 3 different applications. Okay, login as admin, 1. And okay, so this is connected directly to the database. This is connected through the API to the Sync framework. And at the moment, if I do refresh, nothing have changed. Here, everything is still the same. But if I'm going to log in first, admin, and 1. So as you remember, we changed Aaron to SEO and we changed the name of Abigail to XAF. So here we don't have those changes at the moment. This is in flight mode, so everything is working locally. So if I put it back online and I push the changes, now everything will reflect here. If I refresh this, one person will be gone because I deleted. I remember it was I think one of these, but let's see how the list view changed. So let's refresh this. So see, Aaron is SEO now, and Abigail, the name changed to XAF. So everything is working basically offline, and we have the ability to use the security system in a Xamarin application. So basically, I'm going to do another changes here. I'm going to set this offline again. And this Alfred, we're going to change it to Alfred Dennis and save it. So at the moment, we have the change here. In here, nothing have changed. Everything is working locally. But if I turn this application back online and I pull the changes, then if I refresh, see, Alfred now is Dennis. So basically, with this example, you can get everything that is great from XPO and the security system and move it to Xamarin. And actually, you can use it that online and offline. The online part is part of the Developer Express APIs. We also did have something like that, the XPO Web API. A lot of people use it here. So basically it's the same idea. And this example, you can basically work with it online and offline. So regarding the code that is implemented, I will not talk that much about it, but I think that we will make this example public for everyone to use. And basically the file that you need to go and take a look is the XPO helper. Because I will not talk about this because we will say the same in every example that we do. So that was it for this demo, for the synchronization demo with the security system and XAF and Xamarin. If anyone have any questions, just write it in the chat or you can contact us later. We will have the contact information in the description of the video when we finish.
Okay, perfect. Jose, so stop sharing, so I'll share my screen and
okay, so
we keep going. Yeah. One question that is in the chat about asking how they can, using the security system of XAF, keep the session open so they don't have to log in every time. So if you check, there is actually a request from one of the XAFers. He's asking for that specifically request. And that's not something that the XAF security system should take care of. That's something that your application should be able to do. So pretty much you can use something like the secure storage, and then you can do some type of implementation on your site so they knows that it's already logged in. For example, in the Blazor, in XAF Blazor, the authentication is saving a cookie. So only the first time that you log in, you will need to put the credential. After that, you will be able to keep using your application without bugging the user every time with a new credentials prompt. So yeah, please take a look at the example. And if any question or something, just reach out to us or to the support center. So with that one, let's then quickly review. And again, it will be a little bit more of the same, but I just want to show that you can use it everywhere. So right here, this is our web form application. We have the default, and if you see here, the things start to be the same: security strategy complex, and then the object space, the logon, then you pass, and so on, so on, so on. So let's just run it and see that it will have the same behavior. And in the case that Jose was showing about the Xamarin, the only important part is that you need to have a web API, a middle tier, that where all of these settings is happening. You cannot do it right there in the client. Like if you're using some type of JavaScript that you're doing like Blazor WebAssembly, those will need that REST service in the middle. But right here, again, same concept. We have authentication standard, we have our security strategy complex, we have our type of permission policy user, permission policy role, and the same exactly behavior. Only the department that they are belong to it will show, nothing else. So that's web form. What else can we see about the security system? We can definitely go and check Blazor. And in Blazor, it's a little more comprehensive example. But if you go to the landing page from the security system and you click, okay, let's see the demo, it will have here all the steps and where it's being implemented. You have to add the add security system with the security type permission and role. And then you will have, again, a service where you are at the option of the secure type. Then you will have the data store provider. And let's see it. Let's go back to, and let's close the web form version because this one was really simple. And let's see the Blazor one. Then here you have, again, the security provider where it's doing the authentication, the type, the policy user, the security strategy. So as much as you can understand how XAF is using that API to authenticate and to protect your data, you will be able to use it anywhere. Most probably in the future, we will be able to use it in a watch, in a fridge, anywhere where you want to sign something. I don't know, some crazy thing like that. But again, we can run it. And of course, it will fail probably. Let's see why. Maybe I have something else running. Let me just recompile it. Okay, let's see. I think that I have to close Visual Studio and open it again. So while I will come back to the Blazor example. But let's see a few other things that we can do with the security system. So we were talking about all the steps with Blazor. This is really here, all the things that we need. But we also have already the official support for how to change database and runtime. And this is already released by DevExpress. We did a workaround. Meanwhile, we get this one, but this is the right approach. Things that also we can use, how to register a new user, restore a password, all of those things are already there for us. And one example is this restore password, that if we click there, it will, like, this is an old example that is being adapted. I have adapted every time that there is something new. And right there, you can restore the password. You can create a new account without having to have a manager taking care of those. Let's wait for it. So right here, you can put your email here and it will send you an email with a new password. And then when you click on it, it will have the change logo on next sign on. So that way you can just add the new password that you need. And this one that is not working because this is an example that I need to update. It's also a great example of the capabilities that we have with the XAF security system. Let's wait for it. There is no limitation in any point. You can do Azure Active Directory, you can do Facebook, Google, Instagram, Shopify, what, name it. If you see here, and forget about this is a little out of order because I have to update this example, but we have Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything. If you click there and it takes you to the login screens there, and it creates the user for you in the system. And if you are using Active Directory, you can even check the name of your role and map it to the role that you have in XAF. So the limitations are none. Find a standard that works with the security system of XAF and go for it. You are be able to use it in any platform, in any device, and you'll be good to go. And let's now reopen the Blazor example because that one I like it. I'm kind of now in love with Blazor, I would have to say. Let's give it a second. Okay, same thing again. We were talking about everything that we need to do: authenticate, security strategy complex, secure object space. So all the steps are there, the same one that we were doing in WinForms, in console. How about that?
See if IIS is running in your taskbar there and just kill it in your system tray. Not there, eh?
Let me just close all my other projects, and that's it. Sometimes just it. Okay. Yeah, it's coming. So again, it's the same demo, but it's in so many platforms, in so many places that it's a beauty, in my opinion. Again, that it's hard for me to use a new application and don't go for the security system of XAF because I already know that one completely. So if you have trying to use any other type of authentication, you will see how cumbersome it becomes. At least there is a big learning curve in there. One thing that I'm dying to try is using the Azure AD B2C because I'm using that right now for a Xamarin application, and I nice addition to XAF. So in that regard, we also have, and then I pass it to Jose again, and then we configure. This already official example that if you see it's already in XAF Blazor and it's authenticating with all these providers that they are really useful for a lot of people. So again, really nice example, really nice options that we have here: GitHub, Azure, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Shopify. What is there? We can put it there. So, and in that regard, Jose will show it in one of the, I would say, of the frameworks, or one of the tools that is not common, like at least in too much, like it's Uno. Uno is a way to using the SAML from EWP to target mobile applications and even WebAssembly nowadays. So even there, everywhere where the net runs, XAF security will run. So, Jose?
Okay. Well, let's see. In here we have a little bit of the demo effect today. So this will be like kind of simple. Okay, so as Javier was saying, in this case, we have an implementation. We're using this framework, which is the UNO platform, which basically is the way to share the same SAML UI from WPF and use it across all the platforms possible. They have a lot of, I mean, they have more coverage than Xamarin Forms somehow, but the tooling is always is a little bit behind. So you need to work around that in Visual Studio in general. So basically, here there is a demo of how the UI is constructed and how it will work. And the most interesting part about this type of UI is that you create it once and basically you run it everywhere. So, well, here they have a example of the controls, but let me show you the solution. I was working on this solution yesterday and it was working fine. This morning it was working fine, but just one moment before the, the meetup, it exploded in the morning. So, okay, basically the layout is the same layout that we did with the Xamarin approach. It's exactly the same. But in this case, I only took from the repository from DevExpress the Web API service and the SAF solution. So I will not show that again because basically it's the same principle. And then when you create a new UNO application, it will lay out all these platforms for you. So if you really want to run the security system anywhere and everywhere, see how many platforms are supported by UNO: Android, iOS, Mac, JTK, Tyson, which I think is, I never used Tyson before, but I think it's iOS um, for TVs,
Yes.
WPF, or UWP, and what everyone wants, WebAssembly. So I have unloaded these projects for one reason. The methodology that UNO uses is share project. So if I need to compile something, I need to compile everything, and that will take forever for this case. So since my UI exploded earlier, basically what I did is I remove it and just replace it with one button here. So it will be like a little lame example at the moment, but I'm going to put this public so everyone can take a look to it. Here in the UI, we will change it for basically agreed with the data. So let me run this. I did the same as before. I started an nrock tunnel, so I'm able to access the application from the outside, so I can access through from the emulators. So I know for sure that we are running in all the platforms. The only one that I have been having troubles with is WebAssembly, but that is the one that I really want to make it work for. So I will continue developing this example through the week, but just let me run this. The implementation is exactly the same. What I did is I stole the XPO helper from the Xamarin application and just implemented here. So as I told you, if you go and check that example, this one in GitHub, there are a lot of interesting stuff that are done there. So you can just take them for your project. For example, that file that I'm showing you, the XPO helper, is basically here in the core. So I actually have in the Sync framework example, I have some notes from where I got each project and what did I modify on each project to make it work. So let me run this. This will be like a really small example actually. So let's see, the tunnel is working. So we need to do multiple starts. And let's start the Android application and let's start the Web API service. So let's wait a little bit for this because it takes time, because as you can see, the solution is quite big. So let's wait a little bit. Yeah, start working. In this case, the main difference is that we are not using offline synchronization. we are accessing the security system directly online through the web API. So one sec, let me see if the API is running. It should be here. Yeah, okay. So we only changed the label for hello security system, and we have this button here. So I will put a handler there, like a debug point. So let's wait for a second. It's here, and actually I will give you an advice, guys. Before you start doing demos for a conference like this, start using the source controller so you don't lose your changes as I did today. Okay, so we have the tunnel, we have the API that is working, and we have the application on the emulator. Right now, here you should imagine a grid because I don't have it. I have to remove it this morning. So let's log in, and I will write the output to the console. So this basically will use the security system directly online from the web API. So let's run this and execute the login. And basically, let me clear the console. Here we are logging in into the API, and then we will just get all the employees and just write them in the console. See, now we got all the information and basically it's working. The only advice that I will give you when you're using like different platforms that are not Windows forms or web forms is something that it took a while for me to figure it out. Actually, I spent a few hours looking for this, is that you need to make sure if you're not using the full framework that you go to the startup of your application and you write these lines. Because usually the security system and SAF in general will use Tracer to do the SAF log, you know that. So it looks for the app config file. And in Xamarin, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist on WebAssembly either. So my demo was exploding all the time because it was looking for the app config file. And in this case, you just need to turn it off. You should use configuration manager false. So if you're going to start with Xamarin and with any other framework that is not the full .NET, remember to write these lines because otherwise your application will not start. So that's all for me, Javier, in this case. I will make this example bigger and publish it in YouTube, I guess. So let me stop sharing. And we go back to you.
You always then some visualization there in the
platform. Because it was the console. Sorry for that, guys, but you know the demo effect.
Okay, that's fine. So pretty much again, it's more of the how much can we do with the security system. We can do anything that we actually decide. And as we were talking before, we can create the logic to log in with identity providers. We log in with Azure Active Directory. We can change databases at runtime. We can create new accounts, allow the user to create their own accounts, like here. We can allow them to restore their password. So it's really powerful, really comprehensive, and really battle tested. This has been with SAFs in the beginning, and I have, again, I'm my bias, but there is no application that I need to use some type of logging that I don't. My first stopping point is SAF security system. So with that one, I open the meetup for question, for discussion. Anyone who want to share their experience of if they have been using the SAF security system in non-SAF app, if they have run into any. I think that I saw in the chat any performance issue when they have a lot of member permissions. So anything you guys want to share, let's discuss it. Let me check the chat.
That's actually a good point, Jose, is the performance when it comes to checking permissions when you have complicated or very complex criteria. There are options to cache the permission rules versus constantly reloading them, which does seem to have an effect on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in 20.2.3, something like that, there was an issue with one of those member permission. But if you got that error in the is granted, please just update to the next version, and that will not happen anymore. Well, I think that is the first time that we are done in less than 2 hours. So I'm proud of us. and thank you for coming again. I always enjoy this a lot. XAF security system is a beauty. Is what I use in all my apps.
For me, it's the Ferraris of the security systems.
Yeah, and again,
so if you have any questions regarding that, sorry, Javier, it's like cutting back.
No, the only thing that I was going to say again, this is not for XAF, it's for every .NET Core, .NET Framework app. So let's share the news, let's tell everyone about XAF security system, because that will make their life a lot easier after they start using in their own apps. So Dave, Fernando is asking if you later can share the code, the sample project that you presented, and as well all the demos that we presented. Most of them are already in the landing page from the XAF security system, but all of those one we are more than happy to put it in our public repo so you guys can access to it, download it, play with it, and we will welcome any questions or any suggestions or any discussion that you guys feel free to reach out to us.
Javier, and just for the picture, remember, maybe everyone can turn on their camera so we can take a picture of the meeting, because we always take pictures from each meetup. So
that will be nice if everyone who has a camera
available, they can do that. I mean,
that will be nice. And again,
that's good. That's good.
At the end, just to say something else, it doesn't have to be about the security system. If you have any suggestion about the roadmap is one of the big things that we talk about today. Everything that is coming, everything that you guys are needing. If you have any type of suggestion, please feel free to tell us now, tell us later, reach out to us. And thank you for coming. I'm always amazed to see all the XAFers that join our community, and I'm just definitely going to take this picture.
Oh, okay, guys. Like, everyone smile.
Come on.
1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for joining in.
I guess that's it for today.
Yeah, that will be it. If anything else, just reach out later to us.
We were missing one guy. More people is coming, so more pictures.
Okay.
Oh, now everyone is off. Okay.
Okay, guys. So thank you for coming. As always, we'll see you on the next second Thursday of next month. If you have any topics do you want us to cover next month, we can maybe talk about using XAF modules in non-XAF app, about the audit trail, about validation, about or any other topic that you guys feel that we should cover more. And definitely sure that later in the future we need to do a second XAF Blazor update with everything new that is coming on. But as always, thank you for being here and see you in the next one. XAF out.
Thank you, guys.